All right, so it looks like we've got Bashiba versus Dethslayer777 for this week 1 match of the Legends Cast Discord League. We have Bashiba on a Lee Sin Twisted Fate deck, and then we have Dethslayer777. Looks like a Freljord Shadow Isles deck. Was that a Elise there?
Yeah, that would be a Tempo Indoor deck. I believe that's Elise Callista that he's playing. So we're looking at the very stereotypical, the very, very stereotypical Tempo Indoor deck versus something a little less stereotypical here by Bashiba.
Yeah, the Lee Sin and Twisted Fate deck is a really interesting one, and actually, I think a little underrated, all things considered. It may be a little bit over-reliant on some of the steal effects and being able to pull the things that your opponent wants, but against Freljord, at least against a lot of Freljord, that can be pretty good. I'm not so sure about Tempo Endure, although I did play a steel deck the other day and steal 2 They Who Endure, and that was pretty brutal. So you never know how these decks are going to work. If you can get to the point where Lee Sin comes out and starts doing absolutely crazy wonky stuff, then, things can tend to go your way.
Interesting choice here by Bashiba just to save this 2-1. And I guess, probably just wanting to secure and make sure that he has, he's healing his 2-3, which is probably one of the more powerful 2-drops in the game right now. At least probably the most powerful 2-drop inside of the Bilgewater faction. And then we see Deathslayer here, of course, just sucking up that spider to draw 2, which makes a lot of sense, as his deck really does want to kill off his own creatures when it's not too negative for him. But he is leaving himself open to a plunder attack here, which of course we can see that Bashiba doesn't have those plundered goods in his hand.
Yeah, it drops the Yordle Grifter. That's a card that can be very, very nice, but it doesn't look like the Yordle Grifter actually got a steal there. Is that correct?
Yeah,
like
because it has to have
allegiance.
allegiance. Yeah, it has to have the allegiance in order to get the steal. Didn't get that there, and if you don't know what allegiance is, the top deck of your top card of your deck needs to match the faction of the card that you played. So in this case, his next card is not a Bilgewater, it's going to be an Ionia, and there it is, right? The Ionia, the double spell card there.
Yeah, looking interesting. It's tough only seeing the one player's hand, so I'm looking forward to that spectator mode where maybe we can set up the double hands at a certain point. Right now, Bashiba's got a lot of removal, but not too much in the way of proactive tools, and also no more card draw outside of a Twisted Fate blue card. We're seeing a stun go down on the Neverglade Collector, which is good because there's a couple ways in hand over the next turn or two to be able to remove it, and then actually, you could probably even try for a attack, forcing a defense. Otherwise, Deathslayer's going to risk losing quite a bit of health. And then doesn't
I have to think that Deathslayer's hand is less than ideal. That Neverglade on turn 5 with hardly anything on the board. The Neverglade is typically something you want to wrap up the game with, but it doesn't really apply any pressure. And so if you see here, he's definitely going to get that proc in order to grab the 2 cards, which is going to start leveling up that TF.
Well, and then
which
you have
is going to be really important here.
Yeah, and then you have the Parlay as well, which is going to be able to finish off the Neverglade Collector. And yeah, Neverglade Collector is one of those ones that it helps so much once you have, some creatures on the board. Helps you stabilize, stay alive. It also helps you actually whittle the opponent down so that you can win with the big They Who Endure, or just kind of just pressure, just force them to play and kill that Neverglade Collector. But in this case, Twisted Fate did make it pretty easy with that 2 damage stun. And at this point, because Make It Rain had already targeted prior to that effect, it's still going to get the tick on the face. It's still going to damage the Omen Hawk and the Neverglade Collector. But, the good news is you've got Twisted Fate to come down.
Yeah, the second TF feels really, really good here. And it's important to note as well that the Tempo Endure deck does not have doesn't have a large number of ways to get rid of TF. Once TF is on the board, he's actually very, very difficult for the Tempo Endure deck to get rid of, because the only targeted removal the deck really typically runs is going to be Atrocity, which you typically want to use to end the game. We have the Fury of the North coming down here to save the Neverglade Collector.
Yeah.
Once again, you can tell that Deathslayer's hand must be a lot of spells. We've seen 3 Vile Feasts come out of his hand now. which is, it's less than ideal. It's not fantastic.
Yeah, and I like this play here, basically saying here you can have the grifter trade, but I have a parlay in hand. So either you're taking the 3 and then I get the parlay, or the plundered goods, in this case probably going first just to see what you can get. Picks up an atrocity. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in the atrocity out of the deck of Deathslayer is really more important than the fact that it is in Bashiba's hand, because you really want that atrocity in your hand and not in his, so that way he can't sack one of his They Who Endures that will be gigantic and end the game. That's really, really important that that got stolen out of Deathslayer's deck here. Now, with how many spells he's had, there's a chance that he has a second one in hand, but it's a really bad place for Deathslayer to be because he has not gotten that, oh, there's the first They Who Endure. Yeah,
it's a 9/9, but I mean 9/9's not nothing to laugh at, but it isn't that crazy high stats like we can see with this deck sometimes. The other thing too is it's a very low tempo play, if only that it's not going to finish out the game. They're not going to be able to establish anything else afterwards. I'm really looking at this the 2-cost card. Is that the one that gives vulnerable? I haven't played with that one yet.
That gives you Challenger. It's a 2-mana burst spell, gives you Challenger, and then the spell that gets put in your hand will give a creature +2 attacks. You give something Challenger, throw 2 attack on something else, or give something Challenger and throw 2 attack on the creature that has Challenger in order to get a favorable trade. But even at that, it's not going to be easy to pull off here because that They Who Endure is oh, that's the perfect card for They Who Endure, though.
Well, that's great too because it can help, because you get it now. You can plan your turns such that that They Who Endure. You can wait to use the Will of Ionia till they attack, or till they block, or you don't have to use it right now, which means you can use your mana in other ways up until that point.
What other ways are we even going to use our mana here?
Might be the atrocity.
Okay, no, we're gonna go ahead and challenge and then boost. Just trying to push 4 damage through to face here, knowing that he has the Will of Ionia to shoot back They Who Endure next round. Really, to be honest with you, needed to draw a card. Didn't really have many other options in hand. Can't play that Solitary Monk right now. Oh, we have the Callista that comes down on the turn side of Deathslayer. Now, we missed the Allegiance a second time.
It's pretty brutal too, because we're definitely looking at Bashiba is trying to get that TF leveled up soon, and I wish I could
leveled up Callista.
Yeah, I mean not yet, but very soon.
Yeah, there's nothing he can do about it. That's going to be a pass turn. That's going to be a leveled up Callista and a 9/4 They Who Endure attacking straight from Deathslayer here. That puts him in a very good place. I'm trying to figure out, I mean, if he doesn't open it, Deathslayer doesn't open attack here, which is the wise decision. I really feel he might be trying to end the game this turn, which might not be easy to do. If he opens attacks. Oh, he's going for the 13-13.
Okay.
I think that pretty much secures up the game here.
I don't know, because we've got the Will of Ionia. Lee Sin gets... Does he get Barrier first, right?
No, he gets Challenger first, but
Challenger first, then Barrier.
You Will of Ionia, and then you can Warning Shot.
Right.
That's an interesting decision. Now, that will block 5 damage, and then it will block another 2 damage on the other side, because it won't kill Callista, but what it will do is kill the Neverglade. Okay, we got Lee Sin leveled up. So
and that actually means the trade there is going to happen on, not on Callista, but on the Neverglade.
Yeah, but it's going to stop the damage from both Callista and the Neverglade. So we're actually only seeing 6 damage come through here. So he is, at this point on board, he's not dead. However, if there's an atrocity in the hand of Deathslayer here, this is why it's really important that this atrocity got stolen. If Deathslayer had the atrocity, he has the 6 mana to be able to sack the 13-13 and send it directly to face.
And we see Bashiba has queued up the good game emote in case there is an atrocity in Deathslayer's hand.
Yeah, he's ready to go. But this is why it's really important that atrocity got taken. Once again, we have not seen a good opportunity for Bashiba
We're gonna go
to
Bashiba.
actually use the atrocity, but we see the perfect opportunity for Deathslayer to use it, and it would have been in his hand, but it's not. Okay, we got Fury of the North here.
Well,
that's not going to do anything.
Well, right, because it's already going to be going over and attacking. That might... It's already going to be going over to hit, but there's no breakthrough. It wasn't going to kill Callista anyways.
Yeah, that was a misplay. There was 4 more damage available there for Deathslayer if he had played that on the They Who Endure.
Yeah.
And then he wouldn't have been able to kill it off with Parlay. Now he's going to be able to send that Callista back to hand if he draws another spell, because he'll be able to attack it with the Lee Sin.
Well, you could Atrocity and blow up your Twisted Fate, too. Ooh, that's another Will of Ionia. Yeah, there's an interesting consideration. But I think you just do the Challenger. I don't think you go for the barrier.
Because you're going to Dragon Rage it, which is going to kill it and deal 4 damage to your opponent's face. You have the second Will now, which is going to give you that opportunity. Wow.
What a turn here. I mean, Lee Sin is just such a strong card once you get him leveled up. And I mean, the Dragon's Rage can handle so many different things. But that Will of Ionia pickup, both Will of Ionia pickups have been huge for this game.
Yep. Okay, we have the second leveled up Callista. But once again, I'm not sure that matters because he can Will of Ionia this thing. Oh, the TF
what an animation!
Oh, that's huge. So now with the leveled up TF and the leveled up Lee Sin, it's going to be very difficult to get that 5 damage through.
Well, and you get a what's the first card? It's a blue card, right?
Yep, you're going to get the blue card. Now here he actually blocks all damage with just the Will of Ionia. Because he's going to block the Callista, that Lee Sin is going to drop down to 2 health.
Yeah, and being able to refill the hand here, I mean this is potentially marking the end here. That's a
oh jeez, the Rex. I don't know. There's no surefire way for him to get any damage through on his opponent this turn in an attempt to end the game. He's gonna have to, yes, but if we so it's tough because there isn't necessarily a spell inside of Bashiba's hand that he can really use to get that Dragon's Rage activated on Lee Sin next turn. He's gotta hope that he's gonna draw. He's got a really dead hand. He has no way to necessarily activate Plunder. He can't play Solitary Monk. He's 1 off of killing Dethslayer with Atrocity, so he doesn't really have what he needs to necessarily end the game. Oh, and now there's going to be a lot of defenders.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. Bashiba's sitting here hoping, oh man, I wish I could get, one more thing down, get the tick on the face. I wonder what the timing on that is, actually. I wonder what the timing is. If you play the Solitary Monk, right, would that activate TF's card before TF gets bounced? If so, that would do 1 to everything, take the opponent down to 4, and then you have the Atrocity on the next turn. You could drop, the Solitary Monk already has it, has 4 attack, right? Yeah. And then you have the 4 damage direct face off of the Atrocity. And you can pretty much guess Deathslayer doesn't have healing in hand, with the exception of potentially picking up a Vile Feast here.
Second Lee Sin gives
looks like it may not need it, though.
Rage. The Dragon Rage is going to be really important here.
I mean, doesn't that win because it hits the face with it, right?
It's going to hit the face for 4 points of damage. Not the full amount, but then he's going to have the Atrocity, and he'll be able to win the game with the Atrocity. Oh, there's a second Riptide Rex. But it looks like he's going to end the game probably here with the Atrocity. But he can actually Dragon's Rage a second time. Because he got the Dragon's Rage now when he challenges.
Right. I think now you just swing just in case something crazy were to happen that they could disrupt the the Atrocity. You definitely swing and have the Atrocity in the back pocket. If for some reason they're able to prevent lethal here, they won't after the Atrocity. But that looks like it's going to be good game, and Bashiba is going to take game number 1 over Dethslayer777, the Lee Sin Twisted Fate deck, taking down They Who Endure.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what the next match is going to be.
It's important to note there, was that just the first? Yeah, that's just the first match. It is important to note there, I think, that that Dethslayer could have had him down to 1 health. That was a possibility, but I don't think would have ever had the ability to push through that last point of damage. So that game was pretty firmly in the hands, but that was a nail-biter. Very, very close at the end.
Absolutely. Now I need to switch over.
Yep, let's switch over to our second match. And just so everybody knows, if you're watching this, once you win with a deck, you need to bring a new deck. And you cannot cross over in this league. You can't cross over any factions. So that means that Ionia and Bilgewater are no longer usable for Bashiba.
There we go.
Okay, so we're going to have Fiora. So Dethslayer switches off. He doesn't want to stay with the Tempo Endure, which is perfectly okay for him. He doesn't have to stick with that deck. He has revealed it now, so if he needs to get 2 wins, and that's one of his 3 decks, he may have to return to that deck. But we're seeing here Bashiba. Oh my gosh, it's never going to work.
It's right there in the bottom left.
I know, but I get confused and then I can't remember. But we do have the Fiora deck.
Fiora
with PNZ
Vi, right?
Running Vi.
Yeah.
Fiora Vi.
Double challenge.
Now this is what the Kinko Elusives deck with the Frail Yord, just running Zed. Frail Yord Ionia, just running Zed.
Yeah. I mean, you get those hand buffing and whatnot here, and hopefully either hit it onto Zed or the Kinku Elusive, and I mean, you can just kind of run away with it, unless, of course, the opponent is able to drop some early game removal, which is what PNC does so well.
Yes. Now we're hoping. Oh, okay. No Elixir of Iron there. I figured with PNZ, you're not going to play that until you see the. You have the Elixir of Iron or some way to defend your Zed from that so easy to use, just a very, very easy to use arcane shot there.
I mean, I think it's if there's nothing else to play, the Zed deck definitely. And look, there was a second Zed, so that's probably why it wasn't so big of a deal. But I mean, if you have nothing else to play, I think you still do play something over nothing in this matchup. Otherwise, they're just going to stock up the removal for when you play that eventually. So. With the second Zed, I mean, there's definitely no risk associated, but I don't think it's necessarily the wrong play. It's just the one that gets easily punished, and so that's where you kind of wish you had a Solitary Monk instead of Zed on that turn. But
Solitary Monk. Oh, okay, we got the Shadow Shift, and that's the third Zed was in his hand. He actually had all 3 Zeds in hand here. That's a really interesting thing to point out, because that was Zed's Shadow Shift that he played, and he had already lost Zed. Of course, there was one on the board. I think it's important to note, too, that we have the Purifies. Yeah, it does remove the Fiora. Okay, just before the Zed ever gets the opportunity, we're going to single combat it right off the board. He's probably going to try to bank that 3 spell mana, I would imagine, because he has that Redemption in hand.
Yeah, Remembrance.
Remembrance, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Remembrance.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting, too, because Bashiba can surmise at this point that there is statistically very unlikely that another Zed is going to pop up this game. I mean, it could, totally, but 2 are dead and the third got shuffled. So, there's kind of a reprieve from Zed here at this point. Picks up a Radiant Guardian, unbuffed up, so it does not have the tough and the lifesteal. And both these players are actually playing at a pretty good clip. I mean, I've been interested to see that neither of these are taking too much time to sit and think out, the plays and really, study it. But I don't think that we've really seen a lot of, hesitation. I think both of these decks are kind of playing the obvious lines at this point, so nothing that needs a lot of debate.
Now, typically this deck here, you would be looking at this and saying, it's not in the best places. But the fact that there's so much buffing going on in Dethslayer's deck, and you do see the 2 Purifies sitting in hand, which is really significant, because there's a 5/5 that is going to get purified down. Oh my goodness.
That's
Look
gonna be a lot
at
of damage
all
coming through.
of the buffing. Yeah, but we have 2 purifies. It's going to get rid of the elusive.
Yeah, I actually kind of like what Bashiba did here, which was try to bait the Jeweled Protector. They actually want the Radiant Guardian to die so that they can drop a
Second
lifesteal Radiant Guardian. And the more cards they play, the faster they can get Vi up and ready to take down some of these elusives. I mean, one of the things that elusive hates with a burning passion is Challenger. And the good news is Bashiba is running Fiora and Vi, 2 Challenger champions, good stats on both of them. I mean, that's a 5-mana, 4/4 tough Challenger.
That is going to be putting him in a really bad spot, especially now. Listen, he's got the 5/5 tough lifesteal with the coordinated strike in hand, which allows him to, he's going to heal for 5 without putting any damage on that angel. And then attacking with the angel, we're looking at him being full healed at the end of the round. And there is very, very little that Kinko elusives can actually do about a Radiant Guardian.
Well, the wild thing, too, is doesn't have to Concerted Strike right now. Can just save the mana for a bigger threat to come down the pipeline. So, I mean, you know, getting up to 16 is effectively the same if you're holding the Concerted Strike as just using it now and getting up to 21. So that's another Jeweled Protector. So probably going to hold on to that Concerted Strike until we see the recipient of the Jeweled Protector buff. Good pull
He's
from
also
Vi.
got Purify in hand to pull that as well if he needs to. So with the Purify there, you know, it's unfortunate the Dethslayer queued into that almost, because that double Purify really, between that and the lifesteal and the Challenger, really does hard wreck the Kinko elusive deck.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that we've seen Bashiba playing less meta staple lists that happen to be taking really nice advantage of the much closer to the meta list the Dethslayer is running here. I mean, the double Challenger
Purify
champs, yeah.
Double Challenger, yeah, we saw the second Purify come out to save that Radiant Guardian. His Dethslayer did have a way to get rid of it, but now we are seeing here, Dethslayer, the life totals are matched. He's down to 3 cards in hand. We know that there's a coordinated strike in hand and a second Radiant Guardian. Oh, really interesting decision there that he didn't choose to knock back the Jeweled Protector in order to get that +3 or +4/+4, whatever it is.
You know,
+3/+3.
I think Dethslayer made the right call there, if only because, A, we don't know for sure that there is a good recipient of the buff. If there's no other creature in hand, then the Jewel Protector is doing nothing. But either way, Dethslayer is reading the fact that, like, they're definitely losing the game right now. They need to be picking up another creature. I mean, you can't know that their opponent's going to have that Concerted Strike. But I mean, imagine they pick up an extra Zed or another Jeweled Protector or something. They need more resources because they're running out of time and they're running out of cards.
Yeah, you're right. That extra draw is important here.
Yeah. At this point, they're also running out of creatures. And we're going to see another 5-drop hit the board. And that's a Challenger one. That is so huge. I mean, even any 5-drop there would have been really good, obviously. I think it's safe to say Bashiba is in control of the game. But, I mean, picking up a Challenger is just insult to injury against the elusive list.
Yeah, the elusive list, there's just almost nothing at all he can do at this point. It's really interesting that we have the guys in his deck that generate the mushroom cards. I'm kind of curious about that.
I think that's to get Vi leveled up potentially as an alternate win condition, or even just to take her up quickly. I was thinking about that earlier. If they had dropped an even bigger Jewel Protector buff, right, and Vi didn't have the stats, you could play the mushrooms to buff her up to the point where she would have enough, you know, to clear whatever threat would come out. And so in this case, obviously, we can see that Vi is going to get up to 10 attack, can level up. Probably not necessary at this point, but I mean, if you're already running like Fiora support, you know, Concerted Strikes and single combats, I mean, what's the harm, right?
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's typically something that you're going to see in a more Mimi deck with Teemo, or you're going to see it in an Ezreal deck. And let me tell you, the Dethslayer has definitely drawn the elusives. That's the second Kinko that we see hit the board, the Lifeblade there, that does have a slight buff on it, but it's just at the point where you're not 100% sure if it even matters. You know, what is he going to be able to do? That's just going to be challenged off the board.
Right, and willing to sacrifice the chump wump there, I think, is the correct call. I mean, everything else is more important, whether it's for lifesteal purposes or for challenger purposes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Bashiba probably didn't even need to use this here, because the reality is 3 damage, a 6 damage swing doesn't matter at this point. I mean, not truly. But it does get you that Radiant Guardian.
Second Radiant Guardian. Yeah, see, I would have been more prone to probably throw something out and then use the single combat on Vi against the Hawk, the Omen Hawk, to level her up before I attacked her.
Oh, this is a great rummage.
That. A great rummage. Getting rid of 2 things he doesn't want. He's got a Detain in the deck. And that tells you that probably we have the Spirit card. What's the name of the Spirit card that makes you immune and you can't die?
Unyielding Spirit?
Unyielding Spirit. Yep, that's it. Probably Unyielding Spirit in this deck, which would make sense. Vi and Fiora are both great targets for Unyielding Spirit. Oh, wow.
Man. I mean, that is intimidating, but I don't think it's going to matter here. Just has to remove the elusive creatures. So getting rid of the Kenku here. And everything else, I mean, gosh, I mean, with the 2 Radiant Guardians, what's it going to matter, you know? And this is where they're saying, okay, either we're going to get the 5 damage in, or you block it with your 5/3. Or even the 5/3 won't kill it, actually, but with the tough. So, I mean, it's
throwing your 3/3 at it.
I don't even know if you're blocking. I don't think you block it.
Your Omen Hawk is going to be a 1/1 next round. That pop +2/+2 isn't going to stick around. This gives you a chance to let Omen Hawk at least get 2 damage on the Radiant Guardian. You're still in a bad place. You're still in a bad place. You attack next turn. You don't have many elusives left, and he's got 2 5-attack lifesteals in hand, and there's just nothing that Kinko elusives can do to mitigate that damage.
Yeah, it's a rock and hard place. I mean, I think, like, if you're looking for your outs, having that 1 extra creature on the off chance that you pull another one of those +2/+2 buffs is probably you playing to your outs more than it is just stalling the inevitable, which would be blocking with the Omen Hawk.
Yes, yeah, that's probably fair. Oh, another fantastic rummage here. Really, really good. And of course, we have the Detain in hand just in case something comes up and you know, they really do buff. Dethslayer is able to buff his board in a significant way. They can get rid of, you know, we can get rid of something here, which is an important thing to note.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, we can't see what's in Dethslayer's hand, of course, so it's not going to be super easy for us to know what's going on in their head and, you know, and see what kind of lines and outs they have. But the bottom line is, I can't really think of a way for Dethslayer to get out of this hole. At least nothing that is run in the traditional Kenku elusive. Now, keep in mind, this is a closed list format, so plenty of opportunity for players to do some really weird, innovative stuff. That is interesting that
was an interesting decision.
That they bounced that instead of the 5/3. Maybe there's another one in hand.
Oh, 2 Detains.
Ouch. Ouch.
Oh, and the gotcha. That hurts so bad here.
Yeah.
And unless he's got something to buff that thing up, there's literally nothing he can do about that.
There's an Elixir of Vine, okay.
Elixir. Second Elixir of Vine. He is going to save it. He could have another, but there's still 10 points of lifesteal on the board.
At that point, you're playing, if you have another buff, you're playing it just to force your opponent to trade away their stuff. And then you're, I don't know, living on a prayer. Yeah, so that's the only way that play would have made sense, I think. Now, what I'm interested by is why we didn't see the Omen Hawk first.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Just because wouldn't that also receive the buff? I mean,
it would have, but I don't think he has any intention of attacking with things that aren't elusive, simply because he doesn't want to give the chance for lifesteal.
It's a great point. I
mean, there's 15
that
points
is the correct point.
He was never going to attack with Omen Hawk.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at that point, if you're not getting lethal this turn, you're also not going to win off of, you know, you're not going to win off of this play. You have to get rid of those lifesteal guys eventually. So that's why I was thinking maybe swing with those 4/5 and the 4/3 and maybe the Omen Hawk as well. Basically say, hey, you have to trade away these things. Like, yeah, the 1 Radiant Guardian lives, But at this point, Bashiba has only 2 cards in hand too. So I think that's what I would have liked to have seen regardless, because I get what you're saying. But
Oh, he is going to attack. That will be a really interesting decision, because then we could have seen.
yeah, but the Omen Hawk should have been down there too, I think.
Yeah.
Because then you're definitely getting one thing through to the face in that case. You're trading away everything except for their Radiant Guardian with full health. And at that point, one of their other creatures, probably the Vi, would also live because they wouldn't be able to block the other elusives.
Yep, there we go. We're going to get the 10 points of healing. We have the double detain that's probably going to come down here.
Yeah. And of course, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was making the argument for those lines with the idea of I don't know that they have 2 detains.
Sure. And I was trying to think, too, what could be his justification? He doesn't want to give his opponent too many opportunities to develop a board, right?
Yeah.
And so he knows he still has 2 cards in hand, he has 10 mana, knows that he could develop a full board by him taking the time to play the Omen Hawk and buff the Omen Hawk. But we didn't even play the Omen Hawk at all. It does look like we know that the game's over.
Yeah.
That's an interesting decision, because I guess still an interesting decision to me, but he has it there. The Rummage is a completely dead card. There's Omen Hawk.
Yeah, but at this point, there could be it doesn't matter what card that one card from Deathslayer was. None of it by itself is going to do anything.
And there we go. There's another 5 points of healing with a Concerted Strike.
Yeah, I have to be careful, of course, that you don't somehow have your Fiora. I guess if Deathslayer found a way to kill Fiora, that would be the way.
There's an opportunity for him to maybe get back into the game that way, but it would be very hard to do that, I think, because the Kinko Elusives just doesn't have the ability. There's another Elixir of Iron. It's found all 3 of those and all 3 Zeds this game, but I'm afraid it's just not going to be enough.
Well, and I think that this is definitely a very unfavored matchup for Deathslayer777. Of course, like, you don't know what you're queuing into, but yeah, definitely not a super favorable thing. And I think that's one of the things where, like, you can have a little bit of that coin flip luck where, okay, I'm picking a deck that I think to be very widely viable, and your opponent picks the deck that can handle it. That's why I kind of, if I was gonna offer any advice for this particular format that we've been running, it's that I think mid-range in this, admittedly, I love mid-range, so it's more interesting to me, but I think mid-range is probably the best option if you want to reduce that idea of, like, you don't want to have a ton of terrible matchups. Because if you have some of the more linear matchups like this one, where something like Challenger, and of course also the early game remove from PNZ can just completely neuter the game plan. You want to remove those. What is not isolated? I always forget this word. Polarized matchups.
Sure. Okay, and that looks like it's going to be the match. Deathslayer just ran out of juice. Just did not have anything. Oh, he's gonna survive. He's gonna survive.
It's fighting hard, but
oh, it's so interesting, because if he had just had that and he had knocked back, he could have got rid of both of the detains. If he had that last turn, that Will of Ionia, I don't know if he knew this or not. I don't know if that was in his hand, but if he had Will of Ionia Fiora last turn, he actually would have returned both of those creatures that Fiora has captured to him.
Yeah, my bet is that was just picked up there, but
he may have been.
Oh, there's an Unyielding Spirit.
Oh no. I mean, that Unyielding Spirit with the single combat on Vi here is just, I mean, it in so many ways is just absolutely, he doesn't even need it, probably. I mean, at this point, Deathslayer is just utterly and completely gassed.
Yeah, and I mean, the best thing being able to take a trade and go down to 0 creatures on the board, it's the bell is tolled.
Yeah, I think that this is
round
over.
20.
Even
round
a Will
20.
of Ionia won't save you this time, Deathslayer. I think that's it.
And that's going to be game.
Yep,
Bashiba is going to take the match. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to hopefully, over the next week, I'm going to try to do one of these each week. Hopefully different people will submit videos. if you are playing in the Discord league, definitely consider recording your video. We have some of those parameters posted up somewhere, and so the different files and how you want to send them and whatnot. It's not too difficult. We do ask, of course, that you try to give us as good of a quality video as you can. But hopefully we'll have another video up next week, and I might even have more time to put together a fancier kind of display for it, but we're just having fun with it. Of course, thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing to the channel, and more importantly, consider jumping over to our Discord page and listening to the Legends Cast podcast that I do with Mark. That's going to be all for this round, and we'll see you on the next round.